Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I almost wanted to play the chicken song just because I thought it would be funny, but I didn't know if that would be so appropriate, so I didn't. Um, Thank you for joining us. I'm Jen, and this is Blockchain Banter. I am joined by Cluck Norris of Chicken and Tyler from Bancor, and we're really just going to be breaking down this divide between NFTs, DeFi, and GameFi. So thank you. It is Cluck that I have on here with us, right?
Hello and a bok bok.
Hello,
It
and
sure
bok
is.
bok
It's
to
quite
you. How are you?
well, Jen. How are you? Thanks for having
Yeah,
me
no,
on.
absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you so much. Tyler, how are you?
I'm great. How are you,
I'm
Jen?
doing really well also. Thank you. Thank you also to all of our listeners for joining us today. I'm actually really excited about this project. I'm just going to go ahead and say it right up front. I was included in the Mint on Chicken. I am a big chicken fan. I have been this entire time. And I think knowing so much about the project, but still having so many questions, I felt like really chicken was just a perfect fit for this topic. And really just excited to have them on with us today. Cluck, if you wouldn't mind, I would love for you to start us off and just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what got you into crypto initially.
Absolutely. That's a nice question, actually. I don't get asked that very often. So I'm Clark Norris, also known as Booksy. I am the digital platforms and currencies architect of Chicken. We are, for anyone who doesn't know us, we are an ecosystem of upgradable NFTs, running a whole host of sort of DeFi applications under the hood. We are not a DeFi project. We sort of are very clear that we're not here to tread on the toes of DeFi, but more stand on the shoulders of the technology that's been created long before we were in the space. Myself, I started out in crypto in 2016. I was like circling around crypto in 2015, but working in predominantly in automation and network topology, systems architecture. So it was sort of a natural progression to try to, once I fell down the rabbit hole of crypto in 2016, to try to find my way into the space in this fashion. And Chicken's just been a dream come true. It's been the first time I've really been able to really with five other close friends start a project that we felt passionate about, that we could have fun with, that we could build a community to rally around, and it just didn't feel like either a project for project's sake or tech for tech's sake. It was something that was more than a passion project, but one that we were extremely passionate about. And so it's been a real gift to see it take flight, excuse the pun, as well as it has. And we couldn't thank our community enough for that. I mean, you could do this quite a few different ways, and quite a few different times, I imagine, and probably not be able to replicate the sort of success that we've had. And I think that's largely just due to the fact that we've had incredible people such as yourself, Jen, and many, many others gravitate towards this project and each other. So yeah, I think that sort of sets the stage pretty well for Chicken and what we're doing here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And it has been a great time to be a part of it and see you guys really take off the way that you have. Tyler, would you mind telling us a little bit about you and how you got into crypto also?
Sure. I'm a long-term trader. Started in traditional equity markets and transitioned into pretty much just solely crypto trader in 2016. Saw a lot of promise with DeFi back when it was kind of getting its legs, late 2019. So helped bootstrap a lot of protocols with liquidity early on, met a lot of the founders of a lot of the protocols that we use now. So kind of acted as an advisory role and just an LP. And then Bancor, after a few years of asking, finally convinced me to join them as a researcher and kind of biz dev operations. So that's what I'm doing now.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so there's this obvious divide, right? Like, I think we're all pretty much aware, like we might dabble in DeFi and NFTs and GameFi a little bit, but there's really a divide between the three, just having their own communities. And I think with projects as well. Clock Chicken has done a really solid job at including all three of these to an extent. I know that you said that you're not a DeFi protocol, but you are more so, like on the shoulders of DeFi, like riding the shoulders of DeFi. And before we kind of get into the specifics and the nitty gritty of Chicken, maybe you could just tell us how it all started. Like, it started with this passion, but what was the vision behind it? Was the vision behind it to be an NFT project, and you kind of worked DeFi and gaming into it?
No, so probably the opposite. Like I think there's there's two sort of ways to reference our project and how we wanted it to come across. I think the best analogy is the Trojan horse. We kind of wanted this big old chicken Trojan horse where people just love the pretty pictures and the humor and the goodwill that this sort of family friendly NFT project is on the surface. But we always wanted to pack a lot more punch under the hood, and where people wouldn't necessarily have to know they were operating in the world of DeFi and using very similar sort of structures, and really, like, what we're seeing with gaming now is gaming becomes more complex over time. Like, I won't be surprised in the very near future if we start seeing real world economists being employed by major gaming companies to work on, M1 money supply for, an EA Games major title. Like, I think this is sort of where gaming is headed. It needs to be, it needs to make sense in terms of the world that the game is in to make it more robust. But it's also a brilliant way from the other side to use as a wrapping for DeFi applications. I think for institutional purposes and for people who are no stranger to this space, to say financial tools, and obviously people who are crypto native, who are used to LP staking and all this kind of stuff. I think DeFi is doing a brilliant job, and it's progressing at a really good pace. I think Bancor is absolutely, well, the Bancor is at the start of it and is now at the frontier of it still. But I also think there's an avenue that we really wanted to take of making really speeding up the process of retail onboarding into this space. And we couldn't think of a better way for people to learn how crypto works and how these many different sort of token structures can operate without having to actually learn it. They just come along, they buy a chicken, they lay some egg, they stake that egg for some feed, they feed their chicken, and that's sort of all there is to it, and that's all they need to know. So, and then obviously as we progress as an ecosystem, obviously we've just released Rooster dropped FERT. This FERT is obviously the fertilizer for your NFT, which is a farmland NFT, a plot of land in the metaverse. As you can see, like, there's no sort of limitation for how you can build on a very, very simple idea, such as a chicken laying an egg. So that was kind of the vision from the start, was let's start with a really simple, accessible wrapping for this project, but let's limit ourselves never as to what we can build on top of it. And I think that's been the good fortune we've received in it. Sort of taking early success is the fact that we've been able to sort of bit by bit start to really tick off this roadmap. Some of it public, some of it private. We love having surprises for our community, and we hope to have many more. But I think the main thing is taking people on a piece by piece, slow and steady journey without overwhelming everyone all at once. I think even if we released everything we have now all at the beginning, it probably would have been too much to digest for some people. It probably would have been, we would have been doing ourselves and the project a disservice in our target market, which is not just people who are crypto native and really understanding what's going on and what we're doing here, which is by and large, you know, the smart cookies that got into this project very early. But we really didn't want to go over the heads of your mum and dad investors, people who are new to gaming and NFTs, you know, on-chain gaming and NFTs. We really wanted them to have a really clear access point and have confidence with what they were buying and just have fun with it, you know, because at the end of the day, that's the unique position we're in the world of NFTs and DeFi and GameFi and all of these different microcosms in crypto. We have the ability to make not only complex financial systems understandable to everyone, but we have the ability to make them fun. So why not do that? Because it's very possible.
Sorry, I love what you're saying. I actually want to bring it back to the very beginning because Tyler and I were having this conversation. He was telling me that he has some friends that are gamers that are just super anti-crypto. And it caught my attention when you said that, you know, one of the reasons that you guys had created this in such a way was to really educate and onboard new users who were otherwise unfamiliar. Tyler, what have you found when you're speaking to like your friends that are gamers that are super anti-crypto? Like, do you see what Cluck is saying as far as bringing them on board and introducing them to this? Do you see that being like a successful thing in the near future?
Yeah, I mean, it's I can't speak for the entire, you know, like video gamer, you know, collective, but a lot of the hardcore gamers are just like totally allergic to, you know, interjecting or injecting a currency into their games because there's like some kind of purist notion about it, which is, you know, kind of hypocritical because there's professional, you know, gamers now and they all heavily support that. But yeah, I think there's definitely going to be some migration from that arena over to GameFi. I think, well, I say GameFi, but maybe more play to earn, because I think those are two different categories. Cluck, you can correct me if I'm wrong there. But I see kind of play to earn, like with Illuvium and projects like that. Like if they can actually successfully launch a really high-end game experience with currency on the back end, that's not like the core focus. I definitely see a little bit of the traditional gamer market fluctuating and going into that.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there, Tyler. Like, I think it's a huge mountain to climb to try to get traditional hardcore gamers into Web3 gaming. They're just not the same thing. They may be at some point, like maybe the pressure will just be too immense for, you know, gaming purists and developers alike to avoid coming into Web3 with their skills, with their knowledge, with their users. Perhaps that is what will play out, and perhaps, you know, we will see all AAA games move to the metaverse and to Web3. But I think what could also be a likely scenario is more of elements of Web3 infecting gaming, sort of the other way around. You know, this idea of, I mean, you're right, it absolutely is hypocritical given that the sort of gaming industry is more lucrative than entertainment, all of entertainment combined, you know, sans gaming. But secondly, yeah, that you have professional gamers gaming for literal currency. But I think what I try to convey to the gamers I speak to and to obviously the developers that I speak to who are, as you said, allergic to Web3 gaming is that take the currencies out of it. I mean, the fact that, you know, you and I can go and play NBA 2K, there's a currency in that. It's not on chain, but there's a currency in it. We can play bloody Elder Scrolls. There's a currency in that. You can play Spyro the Dragon. There's a currency in that. Mario, currency in that. There's currency in everything. You don't have to bring it on chain if you don't want. That's so fine. Plus, there's like a whole host of regulatory hurdles that need to be overcome before that is possible for games. And obviously, then like the sort of definition between what is a game and what is gambling, and what age do you have to be, and the KYC restrictions that would come with games being able to be sold to people in certain jurisdictions. Like it's a whole host of a regulatory minefield. But what I do say to these people is ignore the currency side of things and think about ownership. I think the fact is any hardcore gamer would really appreciate owning their asset. If they've worked tirelessly to work their way into any sort of leaderboard or build up their character in any sort of fashion in an RPG, the power and the sort of right, the right that they should have, having poured hours of their life into this game and into this internal economy, since it isn't an external one, the right that they should have is to own that asset. And I think that is what is very possible, even if they are to subvert, and to remain purist in terms of whether or not they integrate with sort of Web3 crypto. I think the ownership of these assets is going to be a really important thing moving forward, because once you get a taste of that, and once you realize that honestly, it was like the invention of the Tamagotchi. I think that was a really significant thing that happened that we often overlook, that people realize that like if I said to you before the Tamagotchi existed, hey, like have this little keychain that just hangs around, that's like a clunky bit of hardware, you have to feed it and it shits everywhere, and then you have to clean it up, but it's really fun. You wouldn't have believed me, and no one would have believed you. But what made it fun? Well, it was the ownership, and it was the fact that I spent this time making this thing and it's mine, and I'm really proud of it, and I don't want it to die. So people get really, really invested in that fashion, and I think that's part of the joy of gaming, is that I'm not coming in. Otherwise, like I could come in and play someone else's save file and get the same satisfaction. That's just not the case. You want to play the game from start to finish. You want to play it your way, and you want to have your experience with it. And the more ownership you can give someone of that experience, the more fun they're going to have. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, that's really well said. And I'm like super nostalgic over here now. And the other thing that the Tamagotchi introduced was that 4D element of time, right? And to expand on that, and bring this back to Chicken and just the NFT world and how it's evolving. Isn't Chicken introducing time as an element as well? Like, aren't you guys, this isn't like a static NFT project? Like, things evolve over time, and your yield and all of that stuff is totally relative to how long you've been farming, I'm guessing.
Exactly right. You're rewarded you can actively, you can actively influence your outcome by interacting more regularly and spending more time with your assets, with your chicken, with your rooster. I think it's a really simple and powerful aspect to NFTs, which hasn't yet been explored, which gaming has revealed to us in certain different ways. But now, like, the true power of gaming in Web3 is the emphasis on ownership, and combining all these great gaming elements that, yes, sure, they aren't the AAA elements that a lot of hardcore gamers are looking for, but they are super fun, hooky, addictive, sticky elements that people who just want to come along and play. Mobile gaming is a huge industry, and again, most hardcore gamers turn their nose up at that. It doesn't stop it from being an extremely successful industry where heaps of developers have flocked, a lot of retail gamers have flocked, a lot of money is being invested, spent, earned. So while we could probably sit here and postulate and debate over whether Web3 gaming is going to take over traditional gaming, I'm not sure. None of us are necessarily sure. But is there a place for Web3 gaming in the future and now even, yes, definitely. And I think there are going to be elements that are revealed to us, hopefully with projects like Chicken, but also with the space at large. There's going to be elements that traditional gaming are going to pick up on, and they're not going away.
Clark, I've got a question for you. You're talking about the gaming elements, and I'm curious, you said that it was you and 5 of your close friends that started Chicken, right?
Mm-hmm.
Were you guys, is somebody more into DeFi? Is somebody more into NFTs? Is somebody more into gaming? Like, how did this all come about to combine them into Chicken? Was there an inspiration from another project?
Yeah, this is the fun sort of part. I would say the majority of us were more into DeFi than most of us. I would say turned our nose up at NFTs a little bit before launching in and starting a project of our own. But it was purely the frustration that like, man, like the ERC 721 protocol, like there's a lot of wiggle room in there. There's a lot you can do with it. There's a lot you could do with, I don't know, upgradable NFTs. Why isn't anyone doing this? Why do we just keep seeing like repetitive derivative projects over and over and over? And it was that sort of malaise and this sort of frustration that we had with the space that A, led us to go, oh, why don't we make something? And B, also sort of seek to integrate elements that that NFTs were sorely missing, which was, overall utility. And obviously that sort of utility was something that I had personally back of mind for a little while. Definitely was not possible with Ethereum. May or may not be possible with some layer 2 scaling solutions on Ethereum. But this sort of ecosystem we have running at the moment, we didn't feel confident we could execute until we launched on Avalanche. And we feel even more confident about with the prospect of moving to our own subnet. So that's when things started to really click for us, was when we realized, hey, like we can build on Avalanche now. There's a much smaller audience than Ethereum, but there is an audience there, and it's really starting to grow, which is fantastic. But yeah, overall, I would say we were more anti NFTs, if anything. Our artist Gravy is, he's never done an NFT project before this, but he is an incredible artist and designer in his own right. Everything from 3D animation to, I'm not a visual artist, but like acrylics, let's say. He does everything. He does it all. But we were so lucky that he came on board to do the artwork for something as fun and silly as Chicken. And now it just means that we have so much scope to elevate this project beyond what it already is. But yeah, I think we're 6 guys around our late 20s and 30s. We're all gamers at heart, like very few people in our demographic and our age aren't gamers at heart. So it was something we naturally gravitated towards, was like, how do we take this and play with it and gamify it and make it more fun and make it more enjoyable, but also like heaps techie. So yeah, to answer your question, it was definitely like the idea of doing something really exciting technologically first, and then the NFT later.
Yeah, I actually really love the aesthetics of the chickens, like the realism of the components and the kind of collage effect. I think it's actually one of the best, GameFi collections I've seen.
Thanks, man.
Jen, I hope you can forgive me if I'm jumping out of line here, but I just wanted to ask Cluck about the pre-launch. Like, did you guys decide on Avalanche kind of organically, or what was that process like? And was it from a perspective of community building or just having the AVAX kind of team behind you? Like, how did you make those decisions, like kind of preliminary?
Yeah, sure. Fast, like we came in completely cold to the Avalanche system professionally. We didn't know anyone from, say, Ava Labs or any existing projects that were on chain. Having said that, once we started started our launch phase, like people were incredible. Avalabs, people like Luigi and Daniel Colleen and all these guys came out of the woodwork very quickly and were like, how can we help you? How can we connect you to the people you want to be connected with? We want to see you succeed. And that was when we were like, oh, wow, we've made the right decision, because we've sort of jumped into an ecosystem at the right time. But for us, it was once we'd settled on a project, like not only the name chicken, the concept chicken, but the tone that we wanted for the project. That was when we knew that Avalanche was the right home for this project. As I said before, like we absolutely could have launched this on Ethereum, but it probably would have been a flop beyond the initial mint, because like it's just not financially feasible to sort of have the number of contract interactions that we have.
Yeah, you can't layer
No.
any systems on top of that. You're basically stuck with something static.
And you can do a staking mechanism like we have, like we call it roosting. Moonbirds have come along and called it nesting. I'm sure there's no stealing of ideas going on there, but Moonbirds, we're watching you, and we can't wait for you to give us the homage we deserve. But you can nest, you can roost, you can do these staking mechanisms, but you can't do a lot else, not unless you have hundreds of dollars for every transaction. And that's not to say that, like, hey, Avalanche is perfect and gas can't go up. Like we even saw that during the mint, that hey, gas can get untenably expensive on Avalanche, but it's just not the norm, which is exactly what you need for this type of project. And then further, once things start getting delegated out to their own subnets, the congestion goes down on the C chain. We're able to scale horizontally as well as vertically. So I think...
Yeah, I totally missed the mint. I know Jen got in, but she spent a lot of AVAX to do it. What is the advantage of you guys like having your own subnet? Do you mind just kind of like outlining why you would do that?
No, of course. I actually think this is, and Jen, like please pull us up if we're getting too sidetracked here. But
No,
I actually wanted to ask this. I wanted to ask this about Bancor as well, because I look at a protocol like Bancor and I'm like, man, they would make waves if they came to a subnet on Avalanche. Like, I'm not saying that that's what you should do and all the rest of it, but like that would be one fantastic use for a subnet, is having, a DeFi protocol with a specific, a specific niche like Bancor has.
It's definitely being discussed with the community. And we sent a couple guys to AVAX Barcelona, and they had a great time.
Wonderful.
Met a lot of the teams there. You're right.
Yeah, continue the conversation. Feel free to hit us up as well. Like, we're having fantastic conversations at the moment with Avalabs. We just had an amazing call with Ed Chang and Justin Fids and some of the guys from Avalabs yesterday. The process of moving on to your own subnet is one that everyone is still figuring out as it evolves, and Avalabs are developing at a rapid pace, as well as everyone else trying to jump on and make their own subnet at the same time. So it's like a learning process that everyone can benefit from communicating together. Like, we've had some great conversations with guys from DeFi Kingdoms, with Chainstack, with Covalent, with multi-chain and bridging protocols who are layer zero, like working to make all of this subnet architecture a reality. And I think, like, a name, a brand, and a use case such as Bancor would benefit so greatly from being on a subnet, as well as, the obvious fact that Avalanche would benefit as a result.
Totally agree. We've definitely been pondering that scenario quite a bit.
Definitely, and obviously, I was reading a little bit about V3 the other day. Jen linked me some great material. I'm pretty sure he's Aussie, the guy that I was reading, right, Jen? From Bancor.
Mark is our product architect and our head of research. He is from Australia. And
Yeah.
yes,
I mean,
so
what a G. I have to link up with him. Aussies have got to know Aussies, you know. It's a small space in Australia, but anyway, I think that's a conversation that should definitely continue. Like, least of all because you can set your own custom gas token to be the BNC token. Like that's an amazing use case in and of itself. But secondly, because you can ensure that gas fees are even lower than what they're going to be with V3. Obviously, they're going to be lower from everything I understand with V3 than V2. But you can continue to drive those gas fees down and make it so that you have like a burn mechanism in your native token. And how good is that? So obviously, we are looking to move to a subnet for those similar reasons. But we also really want to gamify, without giving too much away, we want to gamify the process of sort of running this subnet, whether that's from just the usage of it or the validating of the subnet. There's a lot of scope and a lot of possibility. We're still exploring those possibilities. Again, this is such new technology and it's evolving every day. But we think there's a lot of scope to, again, add more utility to our NFTs, add more value back to our ecosystem and to our users, and of course, to the egg token. I think that's the most obvious use case, that if we can make the, basically, you know, our math problem we have to constantly be solving is a really simple one of inflation and deflation, supply and demand. I say it all the time, but it's essentially just like we have 10,000 of these chickens laying egg every day. At the moment, it's at a rate that we're burning roughly half of all the egg that is laid every day. So that's a really good rate. But we're just steadily continuing to increase that percentage over time. So
that's crazy. What's triggering the burn?
So there's a few things at play at the moment. For us, one of the best things we have going at the minute for egg burning is expanding your farmland. So farmland is a utility NFT that we minted with Egg AVAX LP. So people had to stake Egg AVAX LP and come and burn it to mint their farmland. And so there are 5,000 unique farmland NFTs that start off as one tile. And as you expand your farmland, you get a new tile every few levels until you build up to a full, what we call infinite farmland of 25 tiles. It's quite simple once you're playing it, but it's quite a complex thing to explain. So it's been a bit of a slow burn in terms of people turning their heads and realizing what this NFT is and is capable of. But essentially
it sounds like it's like a multi-strategy kind of thing too, right? There's no like one-dimensional way to approach that.
Not at all. And I think sort of the real utility of these farmlands are yet to be discovered and are soon to be discovered with the roosters that we've just released. 12,000 roosters are all about to start dropping FERT, which then gets burned itself on the farmland to increase their rewards multipliers. So once their rewards multipliers are starting to increase, the LP that they then stake on their own farmland. So rather than coming to Chicken Farm and farming generically for a pool of rewards in a weighted pool where over time more and more people enter and your share of that pool goes down, you have your own individual piece of farmland. You stake your LP and you receive linear rewards based on how much egg is contained within that LP. And as you burn FERT, you increase your rewards multiplier, meaning you can increase your rewards over time as opposed to a weighted pool where you would technically be decreasing your rewards over time as more and more people enter the pool. So that's how we're enabling basically linear rewards without hyperinflating anything. That's obviously been the biggest reason for not using linear rewards in the past, but gamifying it such that we're really confident that we can incentivize users really appropriately and really well for playing the game, while also allowing them to get better results over time, as opposed to lose interest and lose over time.
Look, I've got a question for you. I want to bring it back. You were asking kind of a rhetorical question earlier when you were saying, why do we keep seeing this lack of utility? And then you guys kind of got into the gas subject, like the cost of gas. Do you think it's because people were so limited on Ethereum and are just kind of yet to branch out onto less expensive chains such as Avalanche?
Yeah.
And then in addition to that, you were talking about tokenomics, and you were saying, well, briefly touched on the tokenomics. You were saying that, just easily finding this balance between inflation and deflation. But do you actually feel like it's that easy? Because and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like unless you are really into DeFi and you can see it from that aspect, to create a project with that included in it would somewhat be a challenge, no?
To make it a reality is a huge challenge, but the fundamentals are relatively simple. I guess to create these mechanisms where you're basically gifting people rewards for owning an NFT, and they can do whatever they want with those rewards, but incentivizing people to play a game long term, as opposed to playing it for a short while and dumping all of their coins that they've generated for free. That's where the real challenge comes in. And to do that, you need to be developing, and you need to be making stuff pretty thick and fast. And, there is no speed, as you guys would know at Bancor, there is no speed that is ever fast enough for people in crypto, and just for people who love what the product is that you're making. But I guess our job is to constantly be creating new burn mechanisms, new incentives, new reasons to be engaged with the ecosystem and playing the game. And yeah, we're really pumped with what we've got coming down the pipeline. And obviously the next big thing is, once again, upping the complexity of this ecosystem that little bit more with Roosters starting to drop FERT and introducing this new utility token into the ecosystem. It is beginning to gain complexity. And again, I don't think we would have had such an easy time of it had we dropped all this complexity at the start of the project, at the inception. But tiering it as we have, and introducing elements bit by bit, has allowed us to sort of start with a very simple base, really build our foundation strong, both in community and technical aspects, and slowly but surely build on top of that. So yeah, to answer your question, I think you're right. It is a lot more complex than possibly I'm giving it credit for, by saying it's simply deflation and inflation and deflation, supply and demand. But in terms of a user experience, that's all they should really be focused on. If you're hovering about going, I don't know, 20 AVAX, 30 AVAX seems like a lot for an NFT. Again, look at how much NFTs cost on Ethereum. We're a small fry. Yes, we're I think as of today, the largest coin on Twitter and horns. Yeah. As of today, actually, if you include Chicken, Rooster, and Farmland, we've actually overtaken the crabs, that's a pretty massive achievement. And we love the crabs, and I think we're going to have a lot of toing and froing because they've got an incredible project themselves. But for us, it's a big milestone to be able to say that, our little homegrown project with no VC funding is now, one of, if not the biggest NFT projects on Avalanche. But we are a small fry in the scheme of NFTs at large. And bringing it back to, as you said, the masses that are on Ethereum willing to pay ludicrously high gas prices and ludicrously high mint prices to get themselves into the world of NFTs. I think it's confirmation bias, thing one. They've got friends who operate purely on Ethereum. So when new retailers come into the space, new retail money comes into the space, they're only confident putting it where their friends have put it. But secondly, I think it's just yeah, like where the crowd travels. I think we're starting to see, well, we have seen some movement over on Solana, but that same sort of movement has not come to Avalanche yet, and it's going to. Like, it's only a matter of time. There's a great community spirit on Avalanche. There's no sort of elitist mentality that a lot of chains do fall victim to from time to time. There's a really sort of open atmosphere and collaborative atmosphere on Avalanche between all the projects, and I think that's going to bode really, really well. Once people do turn their heads in terms of NFTs, people already have been turning their heads in terms of some of the DeFi applications and obviously subnets. And I think DeFi Kingdoms has done a really great job at sort of turning heads in terms of gamifying what's possible with subnets on Avalanche. But in terms of NFT purists and all of this, the herd is yet to come. But I do think it's a matter of time. I mean, I'd be super interested in hearing your perspective, Jen, from where you're standing. Like, what do you think the biggest sort of hurdle is there between Ethereum and Avalanche? Like, it's such a similar technology stack, it's still EVM. There's not really any extra learning to do. You just got to bridge funds over and go for it. Like, why do you think it is that people prefer to stay on Ethereum and on OpenSea as opposed to branch out to Avalanche?
It's funny because I actually have asked my friends like some of these questions and why they haven't gone over to Avalanche. And I think maybe it's that sort of comfort, like they're comfortable there. They might see more value in it. Tyler, what do you think because like I've bridged over to Avalanche and to some others. So I personally see more value in working on those other chains aside from Ethereum. Like, I kind of bridged over and really haven't gone back to Ethereum very much, especially like Tyler said, working with DeFi and having all of these different layers, it's so much less expensive to be able to interact on other chains where it's not costing you as much. Now with Bancor 3, gas costs will go down, but we're looking at deploying on other chains as well to even to bring those down even more, offer even less cost. But I don't know. Tyler, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with risk reward. So a lot of the ETH whales that are, kind of stuck, they don't think they're stuck, but, that are on L1 aren't going to them, bridging is a huge risk. And I've actually talked to a lot of my whale friends that dabble in NFTs and they don't, and this isn't anything with AVAX's bridge. It's kind of my favorite bridge out of all the chains that I've used. But there is still risk associated there. And I just think that a lot of people don't think that it's worth it to risk their capital bridging. I don't subscribe to that. I've used pretty much every chain out there. But if I had to just like distill it down to one answer, that would probably be it. And, people are just comfortable with what they know. They know OpenSea, they know Foundation, Rarible, whatever. And I don't think they really want to branch off of the L1 layer.
I can see that also, the security. Go ahead, Clark.
Oh, I was going to say absolutely security. And also if at the end of the day, you're talking about, people who have millions and millions of dollars, then what's $100 in gas for one transaction, right? Like, they're very rarely dealing with quantities of money where that is a huge issue. But I think it also just means that the space becomes exclusionary to retail.
For sure.
And I think that's a huge problem because, like, not to be crass, but if the NFT space just ends up as the biggest whales pissing in each other's pockets and slowly siphoning the money from retail investors because they play the game better, I think that's that's the death of the space in my mind. Like, that's that's where people go, NFTs are a Ponzi. I turn my nose up at them, and no one should get involved in this space. And also where regulators come in really hard and shut everything down. I think what we have to do is really push for that to not be the case. And to do that, it means creating affordable and accessible entry points to games, NFTs, DeFi, all of this stuff, so that retail investors can get involved. You know, that's the only way that we succeed. Like, I think we're in a really fantastic spot that we have, you know, such great adoption in crypto and such a great understanding in the space and incredible minds working on amazing things. But doesn't it all count for nothing if we can't continue to onboard retailers? Like, retail money is the most important part. And then obviously, like, institutional money will feel like they're coming anyway, right? Like, they'll feel more confident once the regulatory side of things is resolved. But I think the regulatory side of things only gets resolved once they're confident that retail money can come in without getting absolutely obliterated. So sort of this strange catch-22 where it's like, look after, like, do the right thing by the little guy as well as the big guy. Don't just like cater for the biggest money in the space.
Yeah, that's a great point. And you know, talking about gas, you know, Avalanche has a little bit of an upper hand because they're already, like, they've built, you know, gas into, I think, their model a little bit more. You know, Ethereum, back when ETH was $100 and you were getting a 0.1 ETH, you know, gas fee, okay, it's $10, all right? So when ETH is $3,000, 0.1 ETH is now like, oh, what the hell, man? I'm not going to pay $300 for this one transaction. And there, you know, I'm guessing there's going to be a day when AVAX is, I mean, I'm pretty bullish on AVAX, but, you know, I'm not trying to, not financial advice, but there could be a day when we see a 4-figure AVAX, right? And then all of a sudden, these gas fees that we love right now, you know, whatever, 3, 4, 5 USD, might start looking like triple digit gas fees. But it seems like with subnets, they're already kind of pricing that scaled issue into the future, which, you know, just kind of makes me more bullish on the ecosystem overall.
I have a question for you guys. Oh, go ahead, Clark.
I was just going to say 100% you're correct, Tyler. And I think you're right. Price appreciation is a threat to gas prices. And I think they're incredibly cognizant of that. Everything that I've heard from the Avalabs team suggests that they're 100% across that, as well as the fact that the more subnets that get deployed, A, is going to be bullish for AVAX price action, but B, is going to allow the chain to scale a lot more horizontally and vertically at the same time. So I think things are positioned well. We've just got to, obviously we're in a tricky market spot. Like, let's not dance around the fact that the markets are in a bit of a tricky spot at the moment. You know, there's a bit of a stagnation that's happening. You know, nothing's particularly bullish and nothing's overly bearish at the moment, I wouldn't say. So things are a bit stagnant and people are waiting for a clear direction to be made in the markets for some momentum to start picking up again. But look, like, I think most of us who are in the Avalanche ecosystem know where things are headed over there, but it's about getting that message across that, hey, like, some really smart people are actually working on these problems, and they've worked on them from a sort of first principles up approach, as opposed to how do we fix Ethereum? Ethereum is the only way. And hey, like, I'm not here to rag on Ethereum. Like, I'm a big lover of Ethereum, and all power to the chains that aim to scale it. But I do worry that it's all still theoretical at this point. I haven't seen anything that's like, yep, that works. Whereas as a developer, the reason that we ended up going to Avalanche was a simple answer of, yep, that works. That we can fulfill our idea on that chain now. So let's do it.
So speaking of fulfilling ideas, Tyler and I were talking about this earlier, and we were talking about the utility for NFTs, and we were talking about using them as collateral. Now, Tyler, I know that you wanted to touch on something, and I wanted to ask Cluck too, because if I'm not mistaken, when I first got into chicken, I remembered reading that eventually we might be able to use our chicken and our rooster, as collateral to borrow against. And I think we're seeing a little bit more of that being offered on Ethereum as well. Right. So that's kind of on the roadmap still. And Tyler, I want you to comment on what it is that you were telling me earlier as well.
Yeah, so I actually think this is sort of underestimated in the market right now on the macro view, and that is collateralized NFT staking for loans. The project that I have most of my interest in is JPEG right now. And there's others like NFTX. There's probably a few more protocols developing this. But the bull case for it is when you look at the valuations for the most popular NFT projects on Ethereum right now, obviously Bored Ape Yacht Club has a valuation of around 4 billion. Mutant Ape Yacht Club, 2 billion. CryptoPunks, 2 billion. A lot of money right now just sort of sitting in JPEGs that there's really no way to unlock that valuation. It's just sort of static trading right now. So what JPEG has done is they've allowed for loans to be taken out on your static JPEGs. So if you do just some quick napkin math, you could probably assume that, I don't know, 10% of those projects that get whitelisted to use JPEG is probably going to use it. And then if you, depending on their loan to value ratio, you could be looking at like $1 to $3 billion of liquidity just, escaping from the NFT market and going into whatever, God knows what, back into the NFT market. Maybe it's liquidity for AMMs, whatever. The possibilities are endless. But to me, that is one of the biggest, most bullish things happening in the space right now. And when you talk about DeFi integrating with NFTs, primarily JPEGs, you've got to talk about that because it's really going to unleash a lot of capital onto the market, like probably right away.
Yeah, that is super exciting, and I couldn't agree more. I think we agree completely on the promised land that is, unlocking the collateral that is tied up in static JPEGs right now. That's a great thing for the space. That's a great thing for investors. It's a great thing overall. I think what people are disagreeing on at the moment, and probably the only point I'd add from the way we're approaching things, is that obviously a lot of DeFi protocols and BNT, it wouldn't surprise me if Bancor hasn't also looked at this and approached this too. But a lot of DeFi protocols certainly aren't confident in accepting NFTs as collateral, just based on something such as a floor price. Obviously, it's different when you're talking about the bigger NFT series. When you're talking about CryptoPunks and Bored Apes, they get sold relatively infrequently. The floor price is pretty stable. There's not going to be a huge amount of variance there. So I think using those bigger ones as collateral is a fairly straightforward solution, right? And I think JPEG is also not only doing something fantastic, but they have one of the stickiest names in the space. I don't think they're going anywhere. I think that's like, what a rad project. But what I would say is part of the reason that we've approached NFTs in the way that we have was because of this problem to begin with, right? You have these JPEGs, which people are already in like disbelief about their valuations, right? You also have a lot of wash trading going on in the space. Let's not dance around that. There's a lot of wash trading. There's also a lot of flimsy price floors. So that's real hard to start to come at as a DeFi protocol and go, Yeah, sure. Like your price floors at this, so like we'll allow you to collateralize, like we'll collateralize that and give you X amount of money for it. That's a really tough thing to do without adequate insurance protocols, also confident to cooperate. The list goes on. And obviously, if you have one chink in the chain, the whole system could collapse in on itself with, one bad downturn. So for us, being cognizant of that problem from the start meant that we sort of built a solution. Now, look, again, we're not a DeFi protocol, so we're not the ones that are going to be, necessarily coming around and accepting NFTs as collateral and giving out loans and all this stuff. That's not our ecosystem. But what our style of NFTs do allow is a new pricing mechanism for non-fungible tokens. So using a fungible emissions token, like the chicken laying the egg, you actually have the ability to use a pretty simple discounted cash flow model in order to attain a new pricing mechanism for that NFT. So rather than looking for floor prices and even rarity tiered floor prices, which, again, gets us a little bit closer to the promised land, you have the ability to create loans based on their fungible emissions. So even if you don't have confidence in that non-fungible token retaining its proposed floor value, you can have more confidence in its liquid token that it emits at a defined schedule. Obviously, the way that we've engineered Chicken is so that once all the feed runs out, Chicken will only ever be laying a maximum of 150,000 egg a day, approximately. And we obviously aim to cancel that out with deflation too. But it means that DeFi protocols could be confident in the fact that once they accept, say, a chicken as collateral, that they have a pricing mechanism from the fungible token that it emits. And not only that, but if they're retaining that NFT, it could even be a self-repaying loan, which is kind of mind-boggling to think about in the world of JPEGs and the DeFi space. But
that's insane. So are you saying the yield that is being generated is paying off the debt?
Yeah.
Wow.
Really cool. That's definitely what you can engineer. Like that's our road to the promised land, I think. Like it's not dissimilar, but it's a bit of a game changer in ways that if you could literally go, okay, I have a chicken that I can, unlock this much collateral for, stake it on this lending protocol, and the egg that it lays will over time pay off that loan, and I can take my chicken back, and that's the end of the story.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I know that. I mean, you bring up a good point regarding illiquidity. I think it's safe to say probably half the people on this call, me included, have some money wrapped up in super illiquid JPEGs that, sure, it might have like a half an ETH price, on the floor, but if like 4 people decide they want to sell, then all of a sudden the floor is like down, 80%.
Exactly.
I know JPEG is chain linked, so they're very selective starting off on what projects they're whitelisting. It's really only like the top 5 or 6 collections. But still, I mean, there's still whales in those communities, and if they ever wanted to exit out of their positions, it could cause chaos. I mean, it's definitely a risk that needs to be said.
Before
Exactly
we keep going, sorry. I realize we've been on the call for an hour, and I just want to give everybody who's been so patient. We have a few listeners who have had their hands up and requested to speak pretty much the entire call. And I just want to be respectful of them also and show our appreciation, give them a chance to speak. Baby, I know you have your hand up. If you would give me just a moment. Pet Shop was up here first. I'm going to go Pet Shop, then Baby, and then Hoop, if you guys don't mind. Pet Shop, if you want to unmute yourself, go ahead.
Thank you guys for hosting this event. This is pretty dope. I love listening to these things. Jen, you're awesome. You always do the good ones. Man, this is a really interesting project. I don't want to like railroad into it with one of mine, but I have a project on a different blockchain that's not that similar to yours, but kind of similar. And I would love to like do a cross blockchain type of thing. So if any way I can get a hold of you guys as devs and whatnot, I would love to do a little collaboration or even just communicate and maybe do something on your guys' blockchain. But really kick-ass project. I'm checking it out as you guys speak, and it's wonderful. I really like it.
Thanks, brother. Always feel free to slide into our DMs. Always open, my friend.
Yeah, if you could accept me as a follower or whatever, so I can actually shoot you a message, that'd be so awesome. Because we develop on a different blockchain and we do it often. I have like a million games that I would love to just like swoop over onto a different blockchain that has some more momentum.
I mean, Tezos is a great blockchain. You're on Tezos, yeah?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, there's some cool stuff happening on Tezos. Like, not least of which Bitcoin Flower, which you've probably heard of, is a rad project on that blockchain. But I think there are some really cool things happening over there. So yeah, man.
Yeah,
I followed you back.
Bancor actually was at the Decentral conference in Miami, and that was going on the same time that Art Basel was going on. And I go to the Art Basel like art fair, like the really big art fair, and Tezos had like 25% of this massive space like blocked out, and they seem to be dominating the like fine art scene like really well. So it's definitely on my radar NFT wise.
Same. I think there's definitely a niche there, and there's some crossover potential for sure.
Yeah.
Perfect. If you want to reach him in the DMs, then that would be perfect. Thank you so much for coming up. And I know I personally look forward to hearing more about your project. I've heard a little bit about it, so maybe we can connect outside of here also, and you can tell me a little bit more as well. Baby, you still have your hand up. Thank you so much. If you want to unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, I mean, the thing for me, all this stuff boils down to not just the technology. Unfortunately, we live in a world right now where FOMO, hype, marketing is really what is driving the market. Those are just the facts. That's just literally what is happening. I mean, you're kind of seeing it with ApeCoin and some other stuff. People want the next new shiny thing. I am not one of those people. I am somebody who wants to learn. I want to create. Well, first of all, I do have a project coming out. We're trying to become inoperable with another chain already. We have some land. We're working on a portal with our land and our Minecraft skins and our Minecraft server, all kinds of stuff. Okay. But what people don't understand is our initial NFT launches on Ethereum. That's our initial. So the initial NFT launches on Ethereum. However, when I talk about all of this interoperability and being able to quote unquote utilize other mechanisms, protocols, blockchains, technologies, let's just call them technologies. That's where my real interest is at right now. I've spoken to the Solana team, and they had told me, because months and months ago, I would say late summer, when Solana had their kind of NFT late summer bloom, which didn't go so well for holders, but they did a lot of volume. They attracted a lot of people. Their marketing was brilliant, and it was cheap. So I never really got into the JPEG portion of that, simply because Solana, to me, is something that runs a bit faster. The fees are a bit cheaper, why would I want a JPEG? Maybe, so I thought maybe, gaming would be the solution for Solana, play to earn gaming. Recently, I had spoken to 2 team members from the Solana team, and those were almost the last words out of their mouth. They're trying to figure out a way where, some of these quote unquote metaverses can become interoperable via portals, or I don't know, new technologies. I don't know exactly how they do it. These guys are much smarter than me. I am not a developer. These are the guys that, actually do this stuff and write and create this stuff. But the point I'm trying to make is right now, first of all, let me just say this. I am not a maxi of any token at all. But I am a bit of a maxi of, how do I put this? I'm definitely a maxi of where I think things are I don't even know how to put it. I'm not a profit maxi. I'm a maxi of like, where's the money headed? How is it being used? You know what I mean? Like, what are the new ideas being developed? What is the innovation? And I'm not saying that's a profit maxi. That's somebody who's simply trying to understand the teams behind these things and what they're trying to do long term. And I'm sitting here and I'm listening, and I have a friend in the crowd named DeGenzel who asked me to join. I do a space every night. And right now, simply put, all of the money, I mean, this is just a fact, all of the money is on Ethereum. It's trading on Ethereum. That's where all of the money for NFTs is trading currently. Can that change? Of course it can change. Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. How does it change? That's a much better question. I think the answer to that question is something along the lines of gamification, like what your guys, what the Chicken Rooster collective, I don't know what to call you, but whatever you guys are doing to gamify that and make it interesting, unique, and something that people actually want to go to and have fun and like, oh, they tell their friends like, oh, this was cool, this was fun, and not only that, it was cheap, and it was this and that and the other thing. I'm really sitting here absorbing, learning, but also just kind of giving my opinion on where the market is right now. I've only been in NFTs for about 17 months. I know that doesn't seem very long, but 17 months in NFT world is it feels like years. Let's just say that. I've been doing spaces nightly, coming up on 10 months. It's just, I hear what everybody is saying, and my friend DeGenzel, who's in the audience, I actually respect him a lot. I respect his opinions, and he's the one who told me about this marketplace. He's the one who told me kind of, to take a look into it, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, long story short, I'm going to look into it much further. And like the previous speaker said, maybe I can shoot somebody a DM down the line to see if there's a possibility of some, cross-pollination or something. I'm not exactly sure what. I don't want to put any, definites on the table, but I love what I'm hearing. I love it. I really do. And I love AVAX. I do. I love it. I'm just trying to figure out, where everything fits in right now.
I think we all are, right?
Right. And right now, it's just this market is so heavily driven on hype and
Hey, baby.
FOMO, you know?
Baby, I don't mean to cut you off, but we're coming up on time here, and I would like to give our other the others in the audience a chance to speak. I know that they have some questions. If you would like to, I know that Cluck said that his DMs are open. If you wanted to speak with him a little bit after the space, maybe you guys can connect and kind of speak on Avalanche and possibly doing something over there. But and I hate to do it, but I've got to move on to our next speaker, like our next guest. But I want to thank you so much for coming up and requesting to speak. So thank you very much. Hoop, you are up if you want to unmute yourself.
Yeah, what's the word, man? I'm gonna be honest with you. I done forgot every single thing I was gonna say. That was really long-winded what just happened. But man, I just love to be up here. I'm glad I'm hanging with you, Jen. Booksy, you already know what it is. Man, I'm just hanging. I forgot everything. I'm being completely honest. I done forgot everything. You know, that's not me. That's not me. But I'm lost right now. Can y'all help me out?
Hoop, thank you so much for coming up and showing us your love. You know that it's mutual, and we appreciate that. Thank you so much. Alex, you are up if you want to. Oh, you know what? God, I didn't even unmute you.
It looked
I'm
like
so
you
sorry.
got discombobulated just a little bit as well.
Alex, thank you, Hoop.
Hey, thanks, Hoops.
I mean, the reason I requested was because I actually mentioned chicken like a few months ago to Kevin Rose, and he sort of dismissed it as something he wasn't interested in. So maybe your Moonbirds theory has some merit, because that's definitely something he was aware of.
I want to do those looky eyes at that. I want to do those looky eyes. I can't do it. That's really good news.
Yeah, anyway, that's all I wanted to say, because I didn't remember that I'd even mentioned it, because I just was on a space with him and was talking about chicken, and he he knows the concept, or at least he heard it once and talked about it. So anyway, that's it.
And I tell you what, I don't think it's a coincidence that the Bored Apes and the Moonbirds have got a hold of a staking protocol that is very, very similar to ours. Staking mechanism, rather. Could be a coincidence, could not. I'm going to leave you guys to speculate on that one.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Cluck. Egg, you have a question? Do you have a question?
Yeah, it's a quick one. So to me, it seems like Avalanche has been positioning itself pretty well in the DeFi scene, with its lower transaction fees, the capability of the subnets, and now I've seen things like Layer 0 providing cross-chain interactions. It just seems like it could function very well as a DeFi chain in the crypto world. For example, I saw an article today talking about Bitcoin-backed mortgages in the States. But what I was wondering from you guys is, what do you think it'll take for crypto-based DeFi to have an impact? And what sort of impact do you think it'll have on the world compared to traditional finance?
That's a hell of a good question. I just want to start off by commemorating your choice of name. I hope Egg is your real name in life. That is our native token, the Egg token. It is not only a fantastic source of protein, but it is the fuel that drives the chicken economy. So thank you for your choice of name, sir. I think let's cross off the biggest hurdle, which is a regulatory one. For sort of institutional level DeFi adoption in the real world, there's definitely going to need to be a lot more regulatory I's and T's dotted and crossed. But I mean, let's be real. Like America, I'm just absolutely guessing that you're from America, Egg. But I know that most people here are. in or around America. In Australia, where I'm from, they're not particularly pro crypto, but they're not particularly against it. They tax us really heavily on anything crypto related, but they're certainly not against the innovation in the space. What is happening, which is really interesting, is that banks are starting to dabble in the world of DeFi by allowing customers the ability to portion a modest percentage of their own portfolios into select crypto assets and DeFi protocols. They run it sort of all under the covers, and they sort of give you a really neat little interface that it's sort of through their native banking apps and stuff like this. But the banks here are onto it, and I think that's a trend that we're going to start seeing around the world, that it's like, well, we can't beat them, so join them. Now, in terms of offering things like home loans, that's a trickier one. Like, I think we soon see like state-owned housing coming in. Like, I know that in America there was a huge sort of housing crisis around the time of the 2008 financial crisis. Obviously, subprime mortgages, the housing market fell through, et cetera, et cetera. We all know that story. But that reality has yet to be seen in a lot of other parts of the world.
If I could just interject a little bit,
please, Tyler, get in there.
I would recommend everyone look at the project called Propy, PROPY, Tokens Pro, and it's what we would call a dinosaur coin from 2017. But they've actually they've had an operational application for about 5 years now, and you can buy real estate using crypto. The deed and everything is settled on chain, and it's a really, I have no money in it, so this isn't even a shill, but it's a really cool project that the CEO Natalia has taken, like really done a great job. And when I look at projects like that, I think to answer your question, Egg, like I think projects like that are absolutely necessary in the space to get to a more traditional level, where we see DeFi and blockchain actually impact the real world. And I think, like Cluck was saying, it's a regulatory thing. So I think we're really dismissive of 2017 projects or 2018 projects, like, oh, that's, they're old. Well, one of the reasons, actually the main reason I got into Bancor and B&T was because they've taken a lot of time, and a lot of projects that are old school have taken a lot of time to get that regulatory clarity. I mean, it's not happened 100%. I don't think that's realistic. It's probably going to take 5 more years to even get to that level. But I think to get there, it needs to be working with governments, unfortunately, and they're not easy to work with. And I actually just asked my group this the other day, and this is what Cluck was saying too, I believe, which is retail going to go to DeFi? Or are financial institutions going to go to DeFi, and DeFi is just going to act as the back end for everything? And then they'll distribute whatever minimal amount of yield they feel like giving to the retail users. I actually see the latter happening more so than the former.
Yeah, it's very interesting that you mentioned 2017, because that's kind of when I got into it. And it seems like a lot of the new tokens after Bitcoin and Litecoin and that work in a sense almost like crowdfunding tools. So I guess in the case of Propy, it was for property, and then I was seeing things like Potcoin for pot stocks and stuff. But it's really interesting how it's evolved, because I only just started getting into DeFi recently. But it seems like the current DeFi scene is kind of confined within crypto itself, and I'm really curious when that starts to branch into the real world and starts having a more direct connection to fiat currencies and maybe even central bank digital currencies, which I've seen the US and China both talked about developing.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, I think we use DeFi like so loosely right now. Like owning Bitcoin, in my opinion, is operating in DeFi because you have an asset that has value and nobody else can control that but you. But that's nomenclature. But go ahead, Cluck.
No, I agree with you 100%. I think it ties us in quite nicely what you're kind of saying, Egg, to what this space is at least started on. I think that next logical application for DeFi branching into the real world is through gaming. That's sort of the next logical progression, and then where to from there, sort of anyone's guess. But I agree with you, Tyler. I think there is going to be, like with anything, like we even see with Bitcoin, institutions are already getting involved. So it's naive to think that they're not going to be getting involved and scooping their cream off the top. Will there be a place for retailers, for anyone in retail, to get into DeFi? Absolutely. It's just going to be in a different in different form. That's why I think like the current infrastructure that exists is, short of regulatory standards, is nearly ready to go for a lot of enterprise level DeFi. But retail, sort of your mum and dad investors that want to get into DeFi, unless they're offered something through an institution like a bank, they're going to get in through something that makes sense to them, something that resonates with them, and something that could be fun to interact with, or something that literally just doesn't overwhelm them. Like if people are getting into personal finance, it's because they want to reduce stress in their lives. So quite often you will see that they have an aversion to getting involved with something that's just going to increase stress, particularly if it's not enormously lucrative.
Egg, did that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. That was a good discussion for sure. Thanks
Awesome.
for having me.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much for coming up. Butcher, you want to unmute yourself? We've been on for a little while, so I don't want to cut anybody off and not give them a chance to speak. So please do.
Hey, how you guys doing? I just got two quick questions for Chicken here about the article that was dropped yesterday regarding feeding my rooster. It says I'll have to feed the rooster daily. So is it 1 egg a day or will it gradually go up? And question number 2 is, will there be a function where I can just deposit egg into it and it just, like a feeder basically, that feeds my rooster for me so I don't have to go in there every day and do it?
Well, that'll be too easy, Butch. We don't want to make it that easy for you, but we are. So you can go and just like chicken, feed your rooster to increase its size and level. But for it to just simply keep dropping FERT, all you have to do is feed each rooster 1 egg per day. So it's only going to be 1 egg per day, and that amount doesn't increase. So that's just to make sure, Tamagotchi style, that your rooster doesn't go hungry and that you're constantly tending to him. And so he keeps dropping you your FERT at the rate that your size dictates. So you can, continuously and aggressively level up the size of your rooster, or you can choose to just keep it dropping FERT at its current rate. That depends on your game strategy and your lifestyle choices, I suppose. I don't want to tell you how to play the game, and I don't want to tell you how to live your life, Butch. But there definitely will be ways in the future for players to be a little more hands off. But there is a really nice dynamic that has emerged from the sort of proof of work that is clicking buttons in the chicken ecosystem and signing transactions. That means that well, it's literal proof of work, isn't it? People who are interacting more actively are getting ahead of the pack. And that's what's allowing this ecosystem to also become more naturally decentralized, because while I can even see and hear some of our incredible chicken whales and rooster whales who own a lot of these NFTs, while we can all sit around and be jealous that they own a whole stack of them, also keep in mind that if they're really committed to this, they're spending a lot of time each day tending to these chicken, and they will soon be also tending to these rooster. So there is a natural sort of we don't want to make it too easy for everyone to be able to do that, right? Like that's only fair for the ecosystem, and it's fair for the distribution of these NFTs and the decentralization of the ecosystem as a whole. But without giving anything away, there is going to be, some slight mechanistic upgrades from the way that you feed your chicken. It'll be a very familiar process. It'll be a very similar process, obviously replacing feed with egg. But yeah, I'll leave it at that. There's going to be just some simple, nice, clean mechanistic upgrades.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to hearing more. Is it another gaming aspect?
Yeah, I mean, that in terms of that ease of sort of mechanistic ease, I think like that's just more of a daily interaction type thing. But there definitely is more coming in terms of idle gameplay for sure. I think people are starting to speculate pretty well on what some of these NFTs are going to be capable of in the future. But what we hope to have naturally emerge is the interplay that is going to happen between these three series of NFTs that currently exist. That's what we're really excited about.
Awesome. Thank you. But did that answer your question? Did you have one more question? I kind of want to make sure that we also stay on theme as far as like the DeFi bridging of them also.
Yeah, I could ask another question if you really want me to. I was gonna the farmland and the multiplier that FERT is providing for the farmland. It permanently upgrades your farmland, right? So even if you add new LPs and stuff, whatever coins, Ignite, whatever you add, it permanently keeps it upgraded, right?
Yes, not necessarily at the same exact rate. Like, so what I would say at the moment is that obviously no one has upgraded their no one has upgraded their farmlands multiplier at this point, but everyone is obviously earning a 4 times multiplier as a base rate on egg and AVAX for feed rewards. So that base multiplier will obviously vary from pair to pair, from reward token to reward token. But in terms of the parameters of your farmland, that will be a permanently upgraded aspect, yes.
Is there a cap?
There is a cap, yes. We can't let it be infinite, unfortunately. But there is a cap. But it's one that's definitely a good lofty goal to strive for.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you for coming up and asking a question, Butcher. Appreciate it. Animal, you want to unmute yourself? You have a question?
Oh, wow. I have food in my mouth, but what is it? So earlier you used to talk about that there'd be a way for new players to enter in this ecosystem to eventually work their way up to a chicken. And I just I see how this could work in terms of maybe these rooster guys are gonna have to, if they just have it, they're gonna have to buy get some egg and get some feed and then do the old egg maxi strat, right? So they can continue to feed their chicken or a rooster. But I mean, where's the end? Like the anticipation? So they'll just keep feeding their rooster, but it potentially could get very banal for them unless there's like tasks or something to do with the roosters. And I don't know if this is like way too ahead, but they might get a little antsy for the, P2V or this kind of thing. I don't know. But
I agree with you. You're trailing off the Dukey boy, but I absolutely agree with you. I think that is something that we're incredibly cognizant of, and we're working to make sure is not the case. Yeah, keep in mind that we definitely will always aim to hold some cards up our sleeves, but but there is definitely more stuff coming between now and active gameplay. Obviously, if we just dropped active gameplay and it was a whole bunch of heavy chickens versus newcomers to the ecosystem just holding some rooster at 1 kg, I think things would be quite imbalanced. And yes, there will definitely be ways, and many different sort of ways, to work your way up to owning a chicken if that is the way that you want to play the game. But keep in mind that a rooster is its own, it's yet to be really recognized as its own asset in its own right. But I want to be clear that it very much is, and there will be a standalone market that becomes very present for rooster, as well as the method of always. Obviously, everyone wants to get up to a chicken because it was the first, and that's also why we have a slight increase in supply with rooster, just to make sure that that first series is always that little bit more scarce and coveted. I think that's a really important dynamic, not just in terms of gameplay, but in terms of collectability. And yeah, there will always be that innate desire to work your way up to a chicken, but it's not going to be the only strategy, by no means.
There are so many moving parts when you're talking about combining NFTs and gaming and DeFi, and you're kind of like the perfect example of it, especially because you're continuing to build and are yet to get to like the actual cockfighting,
Exactly right. And I would encourage anyone, obviously we've got a lot of chicken heads in here, but if anyone here hasn't heard of our project, please feel free to do a deep dive into the docs. Feel free to get involved in the Discord. Feel free to read our mediums. They're a good source of sort of intel in the way that, and we try to make things not too intimidating, not too technical, so that people can really get to understand the game of chicken, and also how the ecosystem works, and how it's here to last, as well as how it is rewarding for those who choose to play it correctly.
Awesome. Thank you. Animal, you have one more question, then I want to pass it over to Alloy.
Is it okay to chill?
You know what? Let's not.
I was just kidding.
Yeah,
No,
it
was a joke. It was a joke. I lost my private keys on 420. If newcomers want to go in the Discord, I've dropped private keys in there, and it's one chicken, one rooster, and one farmland. So stay tuned on that. I will give the last keys at the end of the roadmap.
You are fantastic.
I'm literally going to buy chickens because you guys seem like based as hell as a community.
Man, honestly, these guys are oh man. And Jen, I'm sure you can attest to this as well. Like, it is one of the funniest communities, the funniest community I've ever had the privilege of being involved with. Like, it's a great group of people.
It really is. It is. Thank you for that, Animal. I appreciate it. And like I said, I appreciate your humor. Alloy, you have been super patient and waiting for us. Go ahead and unmute yourself. You have a question?
Yeah. Hey, Cluck, Play Gateway here. As you know, I'm starting my own game, and I just had a quick question. What would you say was your unique value proposition when you started Chicken? You were fresh on the scene, just a baby chick at the time. Was it the art, the roadmap, the laying of egg? Or what was it that helped you mint out in that first couple of weeks? I wasn't there for that. What did people grab onto the most? I'm guessing it's all the above.
That's what I was wondering too. Like, how did you guys bootstrap your community so quickly? I mean, or maybe it took longer than it seems.
Yeah, was there one main thing that caused all these people to flock to Chicken?
I'll try to keep it concise because I could ramble about this for hours. Alloy, Play Gateway. Everyone who doesn't know Play Gateway, great YouTuber. Alloy's no doubt going to be a fantastic project. check his stuff out for sure. I'll shill for you. Don't worry, my friend. In terms of how we got started, please keep in mind that before we came along as an NFT project, there were no NFT projects beyond the single-digit millions in market cap. So the space was still and is still very, very small in terms of NFTs on Avalanche. Second to that, minting out a series of 10,000 NFTs was a difficult feat at the time. Still is a difficult feat, particularly with current market conditions. But we also didn't opt for any sort of shilling or, fleshing out our numbers. Like, I think we can all be honest here that 90 to 99% of the projects that we see flesh out their numbers on Twitter. That this is no disrespect to anyone. This is just simply the way that things are done so that people turn heads. I know I, for one, am biased, and when I look at profiles that don't have a certain number of thousands and thousands of followers, I'm like, oh well, they're too young. I'm not going to look at them yet. So that's why people beef out their numbers, right, on Twitter or on Discord, to get more people involved in that sense. We wanted to set this as a goal for ourselves to make sure that all our numbers were organic so that we knew the actual traction that we were getting. That's a difficult thing in itself because, people try to advertise for you and get bots involved for you and all this stuff. So it's a hard thing to avoid, but we've successfully managed to create a wholly organic community and a wholly organic project. In terms of the selling point, keep in mind, we didn't mint out for nearly 7 days, which is quite a long time in terms of an NFT series that then goes on to be, quite successful. Like, a lot of people turn their nose up at 7 days, at 14 days, at whatever. I don't think minting time, particularly on Avalanche, is indicative of anything. I see incredible projects on this chain take days, if not weeks, to mint out. That's just the nature of doing things in an organic fashion, and not allowing, one or two people to scoop up the majority of supply. In terms of what our major selling proposition was, I'll reinforce, we were very much a Trojan horse project. The people who wanted to look into what we were doing and did were the ones that went in heavy, and props to them for doing that. Because
you think it was that Tri-tokenomics? Sorry to cut you off, because that was really unique. I know that you say you're an NFT project and you kind of just like incorporated some DeFi, but the Tri-tokenomics was a really interesting concept that I hadn't seen that before.
Yeah, and it's something that we've seen forked many, many times since, and will continue to, no doubt, because it was a very interesting and simple way to package an ecosystem that had one ERC-721 and two ERC-20 tokens operating synergistically in, graphically in a triangle that also symbiotically worked with the Avalanche logo, and to create what we call the tri-tokenomics, or the tri-token architecture of Chicken. This was definitely an aspect of the project, but it's not what we led with. What we led with was funny pictures of photorealistic chickens. Like, that's really what we pushed. I want to be clear about that. Like, most people minted a chicken because it looked real funny. And that's what we loved about it. And I think that's what got us over the line. That's what got us through the door, at least. And then what enabled us to succeed from that point is, once people had minted, they'd gone and they saw that other people were excited about this project. They went and then started to dive into the material and started to see what we were actually building. And that's what's meant that we've lasted as a project. And it's also what's obviously allowed us to keep building on top of our original vision. But I think, to answer your question in a really long roundabout way, I'm pretty sure what minted us out was the funny chicken. And I really would love to think that it was all the super serious tri-tokenomics and DeFi stuff running under the hood, but I can't say that it was.
Yeah, that's definitely what brought me in, the charm of the chicken.
Yeah, man.
Thank you so much for that answer.
And props to Gravy for that, you know what I mean? And I
Oh
think you'll
yeah.
find the same thing with Alloy, man. Like I know that the digging that I've done into your project, it's going to be a dense, there's going to be a lot to unpack if you choose to do that. But I think what's going to bring people in with something like Alloy is how cool it looks. Like, let's be real.
Awesome.
It's
Bro, thank you.
It's like what was discussed earlier in terms of hype and all this kind of stuff. It's an unfortunate reality, but it's what we're dealing with.
All right. Thank you so much, Clark.
Thank you, PGW.
All right, man.
Thanks for coming up. Hanks, you want to unmute yourself?
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I was just wondering, just refresh my memory. Didn't y'all say we were gonna get a staking option for cockfights before like we actually get a game?
A staking option for
Well,
cockfights.
like
How do you mean? I'm sorry.
idle cockfights before like we ever get a real cockfight game.
So not necessarily idle cockfights, but there definitely is going to be idle gameplay. Obviously, it's sort of like what we were saying earlier in terms of DeFi being such a loose term. Idle gameplay is also a very loose term. It could be said that collecting NFTs is idle gameplay. Could be said that I tend to think that the strategy of feeding your chicken, when to feed your chicken, when to level up, when to claim your egg, when to stake your egg, when to LP your egg, all that kind of stuff does fold into idle gameplay. But there will be more along those lines that we intend to release prior to the active gameplay that will be coming later this year.
You mentioned LPing, and I had a question for you about LPing, considering Bancor does the single-sided staking, but now I want to give our audience a chance to ask their questions first. I'm getting back to mine, though, before we end this call. Hanks, did that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Everybody have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and thanks for listening in and joining us today. We appreciate it. Benji, you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, thanks. Hey, Jen.
Hi.
Hey, Clark. Hey, Tyler. Thanks for having me on. Great conversation. Super, super dope. Deep thoughts happening here. Clark, I'm a CEO for a game company. We're making Rumble, which is like a group video chat esports gaming show platform for NFTs on Avalanche. And I was just wondering for you, like, were there any decisions that you guys kind of regretted dropping along the way, and maybe like how you then mitigated those issues? And just get your thoughts on that. And I'd love to DM you, by the way.
Yeah, Benji, reach out for sure. Let's connect. How do you mean, like things we regretted doing or not doing in terms of leading up to the initiation of the project?
Exactly. So, before you really did your launch, obviously it seems like you guys have a good episodic rollout of features post-launch. Were there any after you did like a post look at what you rolled out, was there anything that you're like, man, we should have done it this way instead? Obviously like you guys did a very great job succeeding at what you rolled out, but were there any things that you're like, man, I mean, if we did this a second time around, we would have tried this out instead?
I mean, what's interesting is like what we really pride ourselves on is our ability to continually iterate. I don't necessarily think we would do anything different in the lead up to the release of Chicken or in anything that we've rolled out so far. I mean, we had difficulties for sure with the mint of Rooster, which was our most recent mint. I know there were a lot of disappointed customers coming into that mint. Obviously, like it all evens out in the wash. And the unfortunate reality of minting NFTs is when there's a lot of competition, there are gas wars and things get really difficult. We also had some restrictions for certain investors from parts of Europe where their browser default was like putting a comma instead of a decimal, because we decided to charge 1.75 AVAX instead of like 2. We should have just charged 2 AVAX because it would have
made it simple.
Made it simple, bit less gas wars. Little things like this that we probably could have done to, we probably hindered our user experience a little more by trying to be like, oh, we'll make it cheaper for everyone by making it 1.75 AVAX. But like, the end of the day, like people ended up paying like some people ended up paying over 4 AVAX for a transaction fee, and that's like, that is horrific. So I think in future, if we knew, you know, retrospect is a wonderful thing. Hindsight's 2020. If we had the ability to go back and do that phase of things again, you know, maybe it would be, all right, let's hold off until we like have the subnet launched. That would have caused significant delays and stuff like that, but it meant that we would be able to have the environment that we specifically wanted. Or, you know, maybe let's try something different. But again, you don't know the demand that you've got until you mint. You just don't. That's the reality of it. And we were prepared for a lot of demand, but not that much demand.
Yeah, that was pretty badass. When I saw it, it was a little overwhelming for sure.
Yeah, and that's an amazing problem to have. And the only thing that we don't want, because we're a community that prides ourselves on like openness, kindness, love, community, togetherness. Like, I'm not just saying this stuff tokenistically. I really mean it. Like, we have an incredibly caring. We have whales that run their own giveaways. One of them's right here, Chicken Whale God. Like, we have people within the community that just ooze kindness, and that's something we never want to lose. So it was hard for that period of time to see that there were, you know, people who were disappointed, you know, surrounding the project. We don't want that. So hopefully moving forward, we'll never have that again. But in terms of the way that we've executed our vision for the project, I think we're pretty satisfied with that. I think there has to be a really solid collaboration between your developers and your vision, and also the community that is helping your project evolve. And that's been, for us, one of the things that we've been most fortunate with is that we just have such a open, caring, generous community that just want to see this project succeed as much as we do.
Excellent. Thanks for the answer, man. Yeah, I would say you guys are very clear communicators on how you guys drop each episode of your project as it keeps on rolling out. So I'll keep on paying attention, man. Super stoked for you guys.
Thanks, brother.
Love to DM you. So follow back if you ever feel like it. Just want to chat with you about some things for sure, man. Thanks for having me on,
my
Jen. Awesome.
Thanks, Benji.
Absolutely. Thank you, Benji. Butcher, you have one more question. Let me go ahead and approve you so you can. All right, you're a speaker. Go for it.
Wait, you're talking about me?
Yes. Did you have another question?
Yeah, I was going to ask, referring to the game you mentioned, what's number one on your priority right now? Is it the game or Ignite? Which one are you trying to get out first? I know you guys said you passed it on to a game studio, so I was just wondering.
Oh yeah, like let's not say there's definitely no passing anything over to anyone.
Yeah, like
that's
pass,
the
like
we are the
y'all both working on it. Yeah.
No, definitely. Yeah, the unfortunate reality of our project is there are so many facets running at the same time, right? So it's like juggling 7 balls in the air at once. We definitely, in terms of release schedule, will have Ignite out and about before the full realization of active gameplay is out, is released. But they are being actively developed simultaneously. So, you know, throughout our week, just to give you a bit of insight into the way we operate, like we will have strategy meetings revolving around gaming, and then strategy meetings revolving around Ignite, and then execution development meetings surrounding either one of those. So everything's sort of broken up day by day into different categories, and it genuinely fills up 7 days of the week between the 6 core team members and then everyone else that we're liaising with.
I was going to ask you that. I mean, you have so many moving parts now. You started with the 5 of you or 6 of you, right? So how many are there now?
In terms of all the people, like, I mean, it's hard to quantify in terms of like who's currently contracted under us or who has been or who is going to be. But I'd say like all in all, we have like upwards of 20 people working on the project in different development capacities. And then we also have obviously partner projects in the real world and in crypto with their own teams who assist us with different aspects as well. But again, the biggest bottleneck is the fact that we don't want anyone touching our contracts. Other than them getting audited, we just that is one of the biggest bottlenecks, and it's an unfortunate reality of security. Everything is, done with rigorous sort of multi-sig and time lock security, so that nothing bad could ever happen. I think as soon as you start letting external developers, as we've just seen with another bloody project in the Avalanche space, with Universe, it seems that every time someone lets in an external developer to do something, it's, oh no, somebody took all the money, it's gone, which is just like, give me a break, man. Like, if you don't have a multi-sig setup or an Open Zeppelin time lock, so that once you sign a transaction, there is a period of time for people to see what is going to happen before it happens, then like, how the hell have you been allowed to be in charge of a project, let alone be like, millions and millions of dollars worth of capital locked up in your project? Like, it's absurd to me to be operating with anything less than these sort of rigorous securities in place. But anyway, I'm not here to speculate on the way other people operate, but that's the way we operate. So that is always going to be partially a bottleneck for us, but we wouldn't have it any other way.
Awesome. Thank you. Rooster, you have a question.
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. I was hoping you could comment on how the traits are going to play a factor with the roosters.
Great question. Let's try to answer this in an abridged fashion. So each trait has a corresponding attribute, or an in-game attribute, I should say. So let's say, I'm going to just purely use an example here. Let's look and see, like, Butcher has a crown, on his PFP. If we say that a crown means you have +2 constitution, that is your corresponding attribute, right? If +2 constitution means, you're going to have, I don't know, more dexterity in terms of fighting. I'm trying to give you alpha without giving any of you any alpha. But
I appreciate that.
Yeah, let's say that a trait gives you a plus. They're only additives, so none of them are subtractive. You're not going to like lose any power with a trait, for example. But yeah, each trait will have its own corresponding properties in game. That's probably the easiest way to say that. But also they'll have values outside of the active gameplay. I want to make that clear as well.
Cool.
It's not going to be the only reason for having a chicken with or without traits.
All right. I did kind of have an add-on question. So, I kind of been looking through the collection, and, some of them have borders and backgrounds. Do you have plans to incorporate those as well? Because I don't know, I feel like sometimes maybe a border might be a little bit of a stretch. So I was just curious how you thought about that.
No, absolutely. This is a question we do get asked from time to time. I think it's safest to assume at the moment that things like borders and backgrounds are great aesthetic synergies to have, great collectible elements to the series, but won't necessarily add or subtract to your in-game experience.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, Rooster. Tyler, I can't help but wonder what you're thinking right now, because you came up here completely unfamiliar. Well, not completely unfamiliar, but somewhat unfamiliar with chicken. And now we're talking about all of these different, like I said earlier, moving parts of the project. And I'm curious.
I love it. I'm actually like, I'm into another GameFi project called Smallverse. And they have, they're a great team, and they're on Arbitrum, and they built out their own marketplace called treasure.lol. And it's a similar, it's not like chicken, but it's a similar kind of, like, you need a plot of land, and you need, you need a whole collection of kind of NFTs to generate yield, etc. So this isn't like crazy to me. I'm just like more interested in it than anything. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna like try to scoop up some chickens and roosters and play around with it after this.
Do you hear that, everyone? He's getting the broom out. Everybody run.
Ropian, you have a question? You want to go ahead and unmute yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jen. Hey guys. Great talk so far. I love listening to all of this stuff, obviously. I had two questions, actually. So I was wondering about Ignite. Is there any sort of curation going to be happening in terms of what type of projects are going to be bridging over or going to go, use the tri-token architecture, or is it just completely open? Or are you guys also involved in helping these guys along and creating utility and stuff for their sort of the NFT set that didn't have that before? And my second question would be more like, how on earth are you guys getting around to feeding your own chicken and tending to your own farms? Because you guys must be working, I don't know, 9 days a week or something.
Ropian. I want to say straight up, one of the best Twitter contributors to the Chicken Project right here. Love hearing your voice, sir. Love having you in the community. Thing one, yes, very curated process is Ignite. It is relatively hands-on because there will be some more sort of automated versions down the road. We can absolutely see it going that way, but particularly in the short term, we want to ensure quality. We want to ensure that that projects that come over to A, be a part of Avalanche, but B, get involved in our ecosystem are projects that we can see having a long-term success and that have a long-term vision. So that would definitely mean that you can't just have any project sort of coming along and going, hey, I'm now in the chicken ecosystem, I'm going through Ignite. That's definitely not what we're about. And we also don't want to, again, introduce any loose ends to the ecosystem or imbalances or security risks for our community. So yes, in answer to your question, it will be quite a curated process to begin with, and we are hands-on with a lot of teams currently, be it existing or new projects that are coming into the space, and working with them piece by piece as they develop towards the promised land of upgradable NFTs. Because they obviously see a system that works quite well, a community that loves this ecosystem, and obviously a chain that makes it all possible. So there is quite a bit of interest, and it's only increasing after we've obviously announced Ignite. There's I think 3 or 4 launch pads that have sort of been announced on Avalanche. I think people are starting to really see that there is a market to escape Ethereum and high gas fees and sort of make their way to a chain that's a little more user friendly. So yeah, to answer your question, curated. Thing number 2, I think the team is probably in ownership of the most malnourished chickens of the entire collection. I mean, I've got a chicken that is like, I think I've got one at 30 kgs now, which I'm pretty proud of, but that is nothing compared to some people. I mean, I know I'm playing the game as optimally as I can and feeding my like 27 or whatever chicken I've got at the moment very evenly. But yeah, man, like, God, 1 or 2 days will go by and I realize I haven't fed them and I feel awful. I feel like I've neglected my own children. Particularly when you go to the leaderboard and you see everyone else who just getting further and further ahead of you. It's like, it's a scary prospect, but hopefully Rooster.
The leaderboard is killing it. It's killing it.
The leaderboard puts a bit of exogenous pressure on you, which is a good thing.
Totally.
That's what it's there for, right? But also it's something to strive towards. Hopefully I do a bit better with some Rooster. Like, man, I'm gonna have to be a bit more on it, hey? So maybe that's what we have to start doing. It's a very good point, Ropian, is probably scheduling in at the top of our meetings each day, just a period of time where we all feed our chicken and rooster together.
That's
Maybe
awesome.
that's it.
You set your alarms. I saw people in the community actually setting their alarms and putting it like into a legit schedule so that they can get their bigness up on their farmland.
100%. It's got to be done.
Ropian, thank you so much for coming up. Crypto Horn, I'm sorry. Yeah, absolutely. You are our final speaker. Go for it.
All right. I'm honored. Cluck, you're a legend, man. Great to chat. I got two quick questions. One is, the title of this is Bridging NFTs, right, to gaming and DeFi. And I'm just curious, obviously Ignite, super excited about that. Can you just talk to us a little bit about how do you attract other NFT projects to come over and leverage Ignite? Like what is the thought process around that?
Absolutely. Great question, man. And thank you. Thank you for your educated observations there. I think it's probably surprising to you, but not to us, that projects, particularly existing Ethereum projects, the ones that, like Tyler was sort of touching on before, don't necessarily receive huge sales volume at the moment, are kind of stagnating there with high gas fees and not much wiggle room for development. There are a lot of these communities that are actually quite eager to approach us. So there's not actually had to, at this stage, be a hell of a lot of outreach from us to existing projects. In terms of new projects, we've obviously got a lot of really cool stuff coming up through the contacts we've forged, either through Chicken, through contacts we've forged back home in Australia, or also through contacts who have come up through the community and have started building cool stuff. So we've got a lot of potential sitting in the pipeline there for Ignite already without too much outreach. Obviously, we are going to start upping that outreach, and I think that just comes with more online presence and really giving Ignite its own brand, similar to the way that you see, Avalanche, for example, as a standalone launchpad. You go to Avalanche for that exact reason, because it is a launchpad. So we want to sort of brand Ignite as its own entity, as much as it is obviously an integral part of the Chicken ecosystem. We want to have it as its own sort of it's not so much a consumer facing entity as it is a business to business sort of model that we will definitely try to have some differentiation, and you'll see that in terms of the aesthetic that we're trying to bring to it as well. We definitely want it to, obviously maybe it'll be a bit like a mullet, business at the front, party down the back. You see Ignite, it's all nice and polished and business like, and then you get to the Chicken and it's happy days and it's party from there. But we definitely want to have that bit more of a polished approach, so that people can sort of have that trust that is necessary to do something as drastic as, say, shift their project from Ethereum to Avalanche.
Gotcha. That makes a ton of sense. The second part of my question was also related to Ignite. I'm no technical guy, so this is pure speculation, but would it make sense to have Ignite run on blockchain, or would that be separate?
No, it absolutely does make sense. Whether or not all projects would want to do that is another story. That's why this sort of has to be a tailored approach for each and every project, and why we're not just sort of open slathering this sort of a branch of our ecosystem. It has to be something that makes sense for each project, right? So I think we would see some projects come through Ignite and then launch natively onto the blockchain. And then I see some projects that it would make more sense to use us literally as their launchpad into Avalanche. and use sort of egg and the chicken ecosystem in the launch phase of their project, and then create their own sort of branded platform moving forward, where there's collaboration with the chicken ecosystem, but not necessarily sort of dwelling on the blockchain, if that doesn't make sense for those projects to do so. So we obviously don't want to be restrictive in the type of projects that we can onboard, purely because we decide to go onto our own subnet. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely, Clark. Thanks so much, man. You're awesome.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you guys so much. I want to almost apologize to Cluck, because this was really going to be like an open discussion on like combining the communities and, within projects, the NFTs and gaming and DeFi. I didn't mean for it to so much turn into a Q&A for Chicken, but I think it really goes to show like how desired it is in the space. It's desired and it's attractive, and there are so many questions that so many people have when something like this comes around. And Chicken, Tyler had mentioned a project on Arbitrum that he is involved with, but there are so few and far between that have so much thought and like overall vision. And then just even talking about the decentralization and the security aspect is also really reassuring as well. So I want to, one, apologize to you in a way, and then two, really just thank you and Tyler and everybody who came out today to join the spaces, because it has been, from my end at least, fantastic to be a part of. So
Yeah, I love it. I love hearing passionate communities. It just keeps me really motivated, and it's been a pleasure. So Cluck, thanks. You're really based, and thanks to the whole community. You guys are awesome.
Thank you, guys. And honestly, there's absolutely zero need to apologize. I think the apology needs to come from me and from our team, in terms of we don't get round to doing many AMAs, and that's probably why we have so many eager people from within the ecosystem asking very diligent and very appropriate questions, and answers that you will either receive in due course or intentionally not receive until they're presented in front of you. But no, we appreciate every single one of these questions, and we apologize for not doing more regular spaces. Obviously, it is because we only have certain amounts of hours in the day, and we'd rather build the thing so that you have the thing rather than talking about building the thing. But it is something that we want to lift our game on, and we intend to in due course. And in the meantime, thank you so much for yourself, Jen, for doing amazing spaces like this that we can get involved with. I also just want to say, you guys have been so generous to sort of compliment what we're doing over at Chicken, and I also want to reflect that back to Bancor. For people that don't know Bancor, they pretty much I don't want to say created DeFi, because as you said, Tyler, as soon as Bitcoin existed, you were operating within a decentralized financial system. But Bancor was a large reason why we see DeFi the way that we see it at the moment. And if people aren't aware of the sort of technical feats that Bancor is achieving, please check it out. And please pressure Bancor, either privately or publicly, to start looking at potentially coming over to Avalanche and launching on a subnet. I think that would be something that we'd all love to see. And in the meantime, I'm a big fan of the project. I will continue to follow along with V3 and the developments that happened there. And I just want to say, as a parting sort of little note, that I think, again, we stand on the shoulders of the people who pioneered DeFi with a fun game that shows people how it all works, while innocently feeding their chicken, laying egg, feeding that egg to their rooster, dropping fertilizing their farmland, and reaping the rewards. And we couldn't be more thankful and grateful for where we are.
Yeah, thanks so much, man. That means a lot, and it's great having some friends already on AVAX, and Jen's just really done an amazing job at being the kind of bridge to all these other great projects. So thanks, Jen.
thank you guys so much. Thank
Jen's a
you.
gun, and I want everyone to know that while this has been happening, our Discord has been popping off with compliments for you both, Jen and Tyler. So yeah, the community loves you, and we can't wait for more exciting collaborations in the future.
Oh, that's so sweet. I'm so happy to be a part of the community, both communities, as a matter of fact. Thank you. And Crypto Horn, you have your hand up, and I appreciate that. You have one more thing you want to say before we go.
Yeah, so I was noticing on the crew here, we've got probably at least half the people on here with non-chicken or rooster PFPs, right? And so, you know, Clark, I'm not necessarily prying for alpha here, but if it was me and I was coming into this, I would feel like, oh man, did I miss it? Am I too late? And so I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm just curious, like, would you mind giving a sense of how early or how deep we are on the roadmap, just so like the people that are new to this project can just kind of understand where they're coming into this at?
Right, that is a great and articulate way to put that. I would say if we're to talk about a project in phases, let's go relative to our other project in the space here, Bancor. I'd say Bancor, if I'm not mistaken, is probably approaching its third phase. Yeah, they've been around since the year 2019.
2017 in our third phase. Yes, Tyler, unless I'm mistaken.
Kidding.
No, the first AMM, like around before DeFi.
Oh, you're right, actually.
Yep.
I should know that. I held BNT in 2018, so I should definitely know that they were around from before then.
Yeah, they were calling it atomic swaps.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was like archaic, you know, very first of its kind.
That was the very first iteration of cross-chain mayhem, was atomic swaps. I do remember. Yeah, so if after this amount of time, Bancor is in phase 3, look, we are 5 months deep in chicken, and we are nowhere near the end of phase 1, if that makes sense. And we're structuring this ecosystem in a way where it is only getting better in terms of adoption, in terms of the things that we build within the ecosystem. And we definitely are reflecting the sentiment of Avalanche. We've talked about this before. Obviously, you start as a small snowball and it gains a bit of size, a bit of momentum. Slowly but surely, that turns into an avalanche. And as we add things into this ecosystem piece by piece, we're really starting to turn from a snowball into that full-sized avalanche. And we've constructed it in a way so that it's going to last not just for a little while, not even for a long time, but forever. Literally, your chicken will always lay egg. We want to be one of the leading GameFi and NFT projects in the space, not just on Avalanche. So in terms of our vision and what we are wanting, obviously we don't have a crystal ball. We can't tell the future, and this is by no means financial advice. But if you're looking to get into a project in its early stages, we are still very much there.
Yeah, that's awesome, Cliff. Thanks, man.
You are welcome, my friend.
Thank you guys so much again for being here. And thank you again to everybody who joined us. Great spaces. And Cluck, I would love to do it again sometime if you are open to it. I mean, you've got so many different things out on the roadmap that whenever you have, well, what turned into over 2 hours.
Yeah, I know.
to join
we should,
for another call, I would love to have you back.
Yeah, let's jam it out in the DMs, Jen. Let's try to organize something on a routine basis, and hopefully then we can get it down to a digestible 60 minutes or something, so that not everyone is constipated with questions that they've been holding for months.
I love it. We'll do that, definitely. Thank you again, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the spaces as much as we did. And if you have any questions for any of us, please reach out.
Thanks, everyone.
It's been awesome speaking with you, Jen and Tyler. Bok, everybody.
Bok, and thank you.